there, it's Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Worldwide TV Network, WomenOnTV.tv, iTunes 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all the likes around the world. I've been waiting for this show for a long time, and I'll tell you why. I've been watching this young lady for years, no matter if she was in the States, if she was outside the U.S. And it was always interesting. She was always manifesting something, always making money for a lot of her clients, and always talking about her good experience and what she was going through. Yesterday, Colleen, it was interesting to read on your Facebook what you were going through. Do I want to do this? No, I don't want to do this, but you got to do this. And I thought that was great because you write really lengthy and everything, and it makes me read. And I know I'm not the only one that reads everything that you're doing, and I know it. You're laughing because you know it's true. All right, who are you and where are you coming from?
I'm super excited. So thank you first for having me on, Brian, and for the beautiful introduction. But my name is Colleen Gallagher. I feel like I'm this magical alien creature, but I'm in Los Angeles right now. And what I do is I help people fall in love with life. And that became really important to me because I had cancer from a young age.
And the thing is, you say right now, because the wind could take you someplace else, right? Talk about that.
Yeah.
And literally you have gone someplace else at the spur of a moment.
Yeah, I have. And so I was diagnosed with cancer at age 14, and that really changed my life astronomically. Obviously, when I was diagnosed, you don't really, at 14 years old, you don't cognitively understand what that means. As a child, it's kind of like you have this thing, but you don't understand doctor visits, prescription medicine over a lifetime. These things don't, add up or compute in your head. But I did begin to realize something really, really important. And that was that I saw people who had cancer, and it wasn't like that death was the scary thing. When you saw these people that were about to die, or some of them did die, death wasn't really that scary. What I realized was scary was living a life that you never really went for your dreams. You never really were proud of, thinking you had all this time and then something happens. And so that in my life has inspired me to go to 42 countries. I've lived in 5 countries. I've lived in 5 USA states. I've done so much in my business in 3.5 years, almost 4 years, that arguably people do in a decade or they don't do ever. And so I think what I wanted to start out with is this part of you being all of you and figuring out how to make your life work for you instead of you trying to mold yourself into all these little categories of let me be this for this job. Let me be this for this person. That doesn't really work with me, but let me see if I can merge or mold myself to form some way, when it's no, the world needs to rearrange to form around you. And that's just true when you're in service, when you're acting of your highest. And yeah, I think that's a great place to open it.
See, so you said something in service. So I'm in service to helping you. You're in service to helping others also. And I say this to everybody. And that's why I say every show is a special show, because it is a special show. Mm-hmm. I've had so many great authors who become international or best-selling authors for that. I haven't even written my book, but they love coming on. And then I get a chance to expose them on our live Tuesday night show, because yours is coming up soon. And I can't wait. I've been telling the girls about you and a couple other people, and I got a filmmaker coming on who wants to know about you, which is interesting. It's because of the stuff that you've gone through, how I've watched you travel around the world and watched you act, end up speaking, which I find fascinating. And then, as you said, we can't be molded into one thing. My Southern mom is the 5-time cancer survivor, Edie Hand, which is the Elvis Presley brand, which is Graceland, the Grand Ole Opry, all of that. If I hadn't found her film, read her book, if it hadn't been turned into a documentary, we would have never gone to Tennessee to do the shows that we needed to do to get the millions of views there. It started there. It didn't start in California. So as you know, traveling around the world, you come up and you experience all these great things. And I always tell people, if you haven't traveled, you're missing out on a lot of stuff. And you know what it's like to go to 42 countries. Hats off to you. I've only been to 24. You've been to 42. I've been to 42 states, but not the countries. But talk about, you're right. I love that the fact that you cannot be pegged into one category, and nor should you. With all the stuff that you've gone through, you've done many, many things. And now you're doing podcasts. I don't even know when you started that, but I know you're at, I think, number 72 or something like that. Let's go over there for a minute and we'll go back to your books. It's not easy doing a podcast. It's a lot of stuff with all the stuff that you're doing. So when you were saying, I'm not sure if I want to do, or I got to do it yesterday, I couldn't understand that, because it's about that grind. It's about being consistent and everything. And you are.
Yeah. And I think what I love that you said, so yeah, my podcast is 72 ranked. I think it's on either business or health and fitness. So it's amazing, but it's just about, it'll be 2 years old in March. So we're just at 18 months and organically we've gotten like 4,200 downloads or almost at 4,300 downloads, which is amazing. But I think from what you said and all of it, like traveling right to me, I was the dreamer. Like I was always the woman who was like, I just want this great love and like this fairy tale. Like I really, from when I was a little girl, I remember taking my blanket with me and like rub it on my face with my sippy cup. Like I remember this being a little girl and I would be like in these other worlds with like castles and like it was just crazy. And so I kind of learned through my life, I didn't want the fairy tale with like the man and the woman where the guy came and swept you off your feet. Like I kind of learned that really early on. And maybe that was the Cancer, I'm not sure. But I realized that. And so I wanted to make like this new age fairy tale where it's like the woman was driven and like creative and in this stuff and still had this incredible life. Like there wasn't a reliance of man for the money or for security or for like needing for success. Not that men aren't important. I love men. I love the relationships I have with men, but I think that this was like something that became important to me. And from that, it inspired me to travel because in many ways, I think I was almost like seeking after visions that I saw. Like I would like be in like daydreams of like kind of when you're in the car and your head goes off or like you're at work or I don't know, and your mind just wanders. Like I feel like I literally began to travel to almost like seek these visions or imagination. I've never really said this anywhere before, but that's what inspired me. And long before I had money, like right now, this month, we're at a $37,000 month. And it's not even, I mean, we're not even really just got over halfway of the month. And that's still like an average month for us. Like if we had that, right? I was traveling more than when I had less than $10,000 months. I was traveling when I had $5,000 months. Like I was literally, I remember I would leverage credit. I was so good at this. I would literally take credit and like get what credit cards you could that you would get points back. So I would literally do it, get points back. So that would pay for all my food when I was there from like the cash back I was getting from the credit. And I
I
always,
remember you doing that too.
yeah,
And I remember you before you got to, I think, Arizona. I think if you were coming from Australia or something like that, I'm like, how is she? I was saying, how is she doing that then? But you were
yeah.
telling people how, if I can do this, you can do that too. And I found that fascinating. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had to
No,
say
you're
that.
good. Yeah. And I forgot about that, but I would literally like leverage credit. And then in 2019, that was in 2018, 2019, I made a bad business decision with the mentor. And so I went $100,000 in debt, but I got out of that $100,000 in debt that same year. So when I was traveling on credit, I never went in debt. Like I literally pay credit. And then like I would make all the money back when I was traveling because I would meet people on the plane and be like, buy my first book, get my first program, follow me on social media. Like I did, and then I didn't have a podcast and it was like literally just social media. I didn't even have a PR firm, nothing. And now I'm on my third book and I've had people that have followed me from that very first, like those first plane rides till now. And some of them have never become clients, but it's not about that. It's about like the community you're building, like the movement you believe in, which I really believe that love will change the world. I believe if you create a life you love, that it really will change your life. And I've seen so much evidence over that in 3.5 years. And I don't know. So I think like that part of traveling, there has to be that dream, that something inside of you, like that wonder, like, I just wonder what it would be like. Like, what would that be like? Or even if it's by yourself, like I traveled the world by myself, like in 13 countries by myself, my first year in business, like no man, no nothing. And
I did the exact same thing. I always travel by myself because I feel that people can't keep up to me when I'm walking and getting up early. I want to see as much as I can because, as you would say, you know what it's like to be a survivor, but you don't put that there. It's like we got to see everything that we can because tomorrow's not given to us, right?
yeah. And I think from what you said, like the travel part, like what you said, like, I think everyone should travel. Traveling changes your life because you realize like I've been blessed to be in rooms where literally none of us speak the same language. And we have the most beautiful meal and you're speaking with eyes, you're using Google Translator. Like, I don't know, like I've just had those experiences and that really teaches you something about human connection and relating. And I think when you really can understand that, like this world is about people. And I know what it's like to be like, I don't like people. I'm anxious. I have depression. I have mental health or, all the things that can go with that. But you have to fundamentally understand that every person is looking for connection and every person is struggling with something equal to what you're struggling with, regardless of language, regardless of what their country they're from, what country laws they have. Like I have clients right now that they can only make a certain amount of money as a woman. So they're using their husband's bank account to get paid through the stuff I'm teaching them. Like, this is a reality that I am teaching my clients with, and like their country, they still have to maneuver different things to like make it work. Like, I don't know, when you do that, you open your mind, you open your heart, you realize possibilities, you realize how much you have to offer already into the world. And when you can realize how much you already matter, how much you already carry, how much you already like can offer something, it becomes easier to be of service, because you're like, wow, like I trust myself. I trust my life. I trust my life journey. I was given so much. And from that, I want to give back. And then slowly but surely more just gets added, because the more you're giving, the more space you have for more to drop in.
What's that? And you're so right when it comes to that. What's it like to be a powerful woman?
I don't know if I see myself that way. It's so funny you say that. Like, I think a lot of people say like Colleen's super powerful, or they say like she's, what are they, like she's young, but she's super dynamic, or I don't know. Like, I honestly don't wake up in the morning, I'm like, I'm a powerful woman. Like, I don't know. That's not even a mantra I usually use, but I think I would say like I'm a woman of connection. I'm a woman of love. I'm a woman of deep caring. Like, what that feels like every day, it just feels like overjoying. Like every day I know, whether it's the person at the coffee shop, like I just met a guy in the elevator today. There's a coffee shop down the street.
Of course you did.
I know. But he's gay. But anyway, so
it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But I was telling him about the coffee shop, because there's 2 coffee shops near my apartment. So there's one down this road that's way better. I'm like, have you been to this one? It's way better. They make in-house syrups and in-house this. And I'm like literally marketing. He's like, I'm going to go. I'm like, show him where it is. The guy who owns that coffee shop I just met the other day, he bought one of my magical activation coins with the unicorn and the dragon for one of his friends. Like, I literally I'm always building networks and connection around me. And it's just, even like I'm moving to a house on Friday. So I'm selling all my furniture in my apartment. And even the people who are coming over to look at my furniture, I'm connecting with them. I'm giving them a free book. I'm like learning all this. Like, I'm always in that phrase, because I have so much to give. And so it's not so much that it's like a powerful woman. It's like which it does probably look that way externally, but inside it's just like, I'm so grateful to connect. I'm so grateful. Like, yes, there's more friends. More of us are winning. More of us want to rise. More of us want to be creative. Like, that's how I view it. And I think that manifests or accumulates in power.
Well, yes, and that's the case, because as you say, when you're moving, and I've moved, I know it off the top of my head because I say it almost every day. Oh, I've moved 120 times in 33 years. Imagine what that's like. I've moved people 45 or 48 times. And so my last move, my helping my friend, she's my last official move. My next last move is to my Dreamweaver Artist Ranch. I will never have to move again because the property is mine and I own it right now. It's worth $3 million. And by the time we're done with it in the next 2 years, it'll be between 8 and 12 million because of what we're building, environmentally friendly, sustainable, and net zero. So I understand what you're talking about, because what you just said, you got people coming over, you're giving them that. As you know, and you know this, you're giving it, it's about cause and effect. So you can have more energy come your way, more prosperous making money because you're moving to something else. Good for you. That's how it happened. I had so many people who, and I won't say who they were because it's not even important. They were angry that you were so successful and good at what you're doing. And I would say this, don't be judging people. Be happy for someone who's going through what she's gone through, what she's creating, because that could be us. When you walk by someone who's homeless, that could be me.
Yeah.
And that's very, very important. And so I stop people in the tracks and like, it's not about that. Champion what people are doing, learn by what they're doing, and take it and build it in your own.
I agree. And I think that's one thing, like I'm always a learner. Like I feel like that's something, like whether it's my master's, my PhD, I've invested so much money in coaching and mentorship or retreats. I don't know, like I'm always learning. And even if it's something I don't agree with, like there's people like I'll look at and I'm like, oh, I don't really like that. I don't agree with that. But I'm like, but why do I keep going to it? Like a great example of this was, and I'll say, but the Kylie Jenner's launch, she just did that launch with the Freddy Krueger and kind of like that blood photo. And I was like, I really like her whole marketing. I always watch it for marketing launches and campaigns. This one I'm not loving. And so I kept going back to it, though, like being like, why don't I like this? Why is it whatever? And I kept like really digging in, like it would not leave me. And I wasn't like bashing her. I just said to a couple of my friends, I wasn't like anything, but then I finally got to the root. I wanted to understand like what the PR play was in that. Cause I was like, from her brand like this, I just don't get it. And once I got to the root of what it was, I realized it wasn't envy, it wasn't jealousy. It was like, I honestly wanted to know so I could learn as a businesswoman what the collaboration would be with something like that, because there has to be different industries you collaborate with as you grow. So you continue to expand into new networks instead of just reusing the same one that you have. So I kind of like looked at this from a marketing standpoint, right? And I could have been like, oh my God, that's so horrible. Why would she have done that? But instead I became curious so that I could learn from my own brand.
What was most difficult for you? I always saw you had many books in you, and I know you always knew you had many books into you. How difficult was it for you to write the first book, or was it not difficult for you?
Nothing was really, so even when you said like the thing about the homelessness, nothing was ever really, I shouldn't say difficult. Like obviously I put effort and time, but I was in New Zealand and I was like, you know what? I want to travel the world on my terms with my money. I don't want to rely on a corporation. I'm 24 years old then. I'm just, this is not going to work. So the idea came, I became available. Once I was like, this is not going to work, something else. The idea literally dropped in because I started thinking, this is not going to work. Give me something else to work. Like I didn't even know the words were like God, source, universe. I did not know the word download. I did not know any of the new age terminology, like nothing. But it was like, write a book. And so I literally was like, okay. So I got my laptop and I start writing just things that happened in my life. And I wrote down like these 4 stories. I'd never taken a class on writing a book. My grammar sucked. Like I never did anything. And then I remember I had these 4 stories. I looked at my flatmate, and I was like, no wonder I've been so angry. Or so it's like, look at these things that have happened. And this is the baseline of my life. And that like the book came through in like 2.5 months. And then I got an editor, I published it. And that first book is now coming out through my publisher, Morgan James, on January 4th. So all 3 of my books will be published. So it was nothing's ever been like super hard, but it didn't mean that I was up late. I was editing. I mean, there were things that came with it, but I really believe from the homeless person to the things that I'm talking about, to when I was in corporate, to mental health, to even my 3rd book of when I let my child go and had to overcome it. Like everything's a choice. Like, what are you choosing? Like your reality is the way it is from your unconscious choices and beliefs. So if it's not working for you, there has to just be this thing of this is not working. Something needs to happen. I don't know what, but something needs to happen. And I mean, people ask me all the time, like, Colleen, did you write down your life? Like what's everything you've done? I'm like, I'm 27 now. When I was 23, 5 years ago, I didn't know anything about people became authors or online marketing or funnels. Like I couldn't even written those words on a paper because I didn't know they existed.
That's funny because I always saw you writing everything with the ease. Because think about this. I was always that Black person traveling by himself. Mm-hmm. First of all, that's unusual. Mm-hmm. And so when you go outside the US as a Black man, you learn a lot. You learn exactly what you were saying, whether you speak the language or not. You go by your eyes, you go by your gestures. And then when you come back to the US, you see the US in a whole different world. I started traveling in a German legal course so I could relate to exactly what you were doing. When I went to Australia, the first time I went there was April of 1993. That was the same year, 1994, April 94, that I started Movie Reviews and More. And I went because I saw what people weren't doing at that point. And I look at you, what you're creating, what you're doing now, are people what they're not doing. So I see you've always been just like steady like this. And then all of a sudden you jump like this, but it's consistent. And a lot of people can't do that because 1, they don't put in the work. 2, they want to try to force stuff in when you should just let the universe do its job. So you kind of did that by just guiding everything in and then picking up all the stuff at a young age and doing this. And as I see it, you had a couple good past lives.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, definitely this is not my first lifetime. And I think also like when looking at me, it's kind of easy to be like, well, she just started so young or she had this, like, yeah, this definitely isn't my first lifetime. I came in with, a soul blueprint that, was more activated, let's say. And also due to that, there was a lot of extra darkness I went through in this life because of that. So it's like, kind of, you have to think about it too. The deeper your darkness that you've went through, it's also the greater you've been here, because the fact that you've gone through something so dark, the fact that you've had that, it means that you've already had practice to even be able to handle something like that. The universe will only give you what you can handle. And so like, I think even being alive right now with everything that's happening from every social standpoint, like in multiple ways. Even for you to be alive on the planet at this time, listening to this, you've already lived a few lifetimes because you're at the planet at such a potent transition when we're moving from like a agriculture manufacturing revolution to a technology and space revolution. Like we're moving from physical products to intangible as revolutions. Like that's a huge adjustment. And just the thought of like, you get something and now it's like this technology air, and then we're going to have space, like not even on Earth, that these are the main revolutions that we are interacting and trading about. So you've been here many times, and it's just allowing yourself to remember that and trust you're always where you're meant to be, and then choose to take action from where you want to be.
It's interesting. Luckily, I love my spiritual cleansings when I see my shaman, who I've had since October of 1993. I just talked to her yesterday for stuff. And I was always very fortunate to always see in person. I don't like when you can't see certain people in person because I love looking at my cards. I'm like, I recognize, the Queen of Cups and everything and having everything like that and seeing where you came from to where you're going now and being consistent. But from looking and reading and doing cards now, what that's like, because I can imagine how many people are going to, hey, Colleen, would you read my cards? I can just see that. Talk about that.
Yeah, so I have my own deck, actually. It's called the Magical Creature Oracle deck. And so I actually drew them. There are 52 creatures, there's 4 different colors, and there's 13 layers of design work before you even get to the creature, like on the card. So it's like sacred geometry, which means that basically how I drew it, it's speaking directly to your subconscious mind.
Yeah.
And it's really the only oracle deck that's combining business and spirituality. So when people come to me for readings, they're really wanting to know like how to receive clarity on their purpose, how to activate magic, how to activate their money, business with their soul work, with their purpose work. And so what I've really learned in all of it really is too based on the chakra system. So I did it on that deck. I did it on the 7 color chakra system, even though there are 7 ones, there's 10 and there's 12 that people work off of. But so when people come to me, and what I've realized is people just want that certainty of, am I doing it right? Am I on the right path? Is this where I'm meant to be? And I think that's why those cards do serve, because no matter what, we all need confirmations. Like I just made a new coin that's like the magical activation coin with the unicorn and a dragon, because every time I am like on the right path, I always find a penny or a quarter or a dollar or $50 on the ground. That's like no one's around and there's this money on the ground, and it's like a confirmation. It's been a confirmation for me. And so I always like building those, because when you are on the path of soul and spirit, you are taking an intangible trust, which is scary to the human experience. So the more that we can be here as reflections for each other, I think the quicker we can give each other relief of like choosing quicker, choosing harder, saying yes, because we're like, it's on the right path. That's the confirmation. It has to be. And I think that's part of the reason why we're all here for each other as well, too.
It's funny. Before you started to mention that, I was going to tell you about, in the last 13 weeks, I found one today. In the last 13 weeks, I found $9.80 of dimes.
Wow.
And I think what when it happens when you find dimes, and I tell people that, you see a lot of pennies, but how often do you find dimes? I'm not looking for dimes. They're popping up, telling me that I'm on the right track, which you just said. And that makes me good.
Sorry, go.
Oh, no, you get it.
I was going to say, the other thing that's really eerie that you just said that is that there's 13 chapters in my 3rd book. 13 is the number of the goddess. And so it's a really special number, but it's like coined unlucky because it was like to suppress the feminine, like way back in the days. But anyway, what's crazy that you said that is because like, it's like pennies, dimes, quarters, all the things. So like, it's just eerie because it's like a confirmation for both of us. And this is what I hope for you guys listening. Like, it's so important to share what's actually happening in your life, because if Brian never shared that, I never shared that, we would have missed a connection or a point for you to see the point of like being open and sharing what's really happening. Like there's nothing to be embarrassed. There's nothing to think like you're crazy or is it too woo woo. Like the more that you just share the truth of your reality, the deeper, quicker, faster your connections can happen for you to have that confidence of like, yes, I'm on the right path. So happy I shared that.
And people forget that you create your own reality. Why does this happen? You forgot that you're probably thinking negative or thoughts that weren't positive for you. And it's so easy to do, but I mean, even if I go into 2 seconds, I'm like, nope, can't think about that because it will create, and I don't need to have anything bad happen to me, you know? We do have to be very, very careful with our thinking, especially us, because we can manifest really quickly. Talk about that.
Yeah. So the other thing, I like the word a lot, and this was on a podcast I was recently on, it's called like the word disciplined.
Yeah.
Most of the time we are so messy and undisciplined with our thoughts and with our words. Like how often do you even just say, I don't feel good, my stomach hurts, instead of saying, I want to feel well. I want my tummy to feel better. I want to feel nourished. Like that simple change of what you want instead of what you don't. But I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm at a point now where like I can say something and like, here's an example. So I was out recently and my ideal client or soulmate client that I have, I made him back when I started my business, when you're doing that whole practice, his name's Kevin. So every time anyone Kevin ever messages me or whatever, like, I'm like, oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. And so I'm out, right? And I get interrupted. I'm at a table and this guy comes over and he's like, I just want to tell you, I love your energy and you're amazing. Sorry to interrupt you. I was like, oh no, you're fine. What's your name? He goes, Kevin.
Yeah.
Confirmation. Like, and those things like happen. Like the more like a Kevin will add me on Facebook, I was like, I'll be writing in my journal, I'm doing whatever. And a Kevin will come. It's like another confirmation. Like you build these anchors in your life. And the more you build those anchors of where you want to go, the more it happens. Like I remember there was one time even like something was happening so quickly. I was like, oh my God. But it was like, I wanted to call and text people, but it was like, literally, it was like sinking so quickly. I couldn't even break to pause the sinking of all the events that were happening.
Well, you talk about that. That's what I do because I talk between 12 and 17 countries a day. This is a day. Because a lot of just on the authors, they're around the world. But they're tuning into our Tuesday night shows, which is what I'm spirit driving. We're at 1.7 right now. So I say we're going to get, not say we are, we're going to get to 2 million between now and the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And from that, I already know because the numbers keep going up and I only go by views. I don't go by followers. I always say you can always unfollow someone. I don't go by likes because you can always unlike something. And I don't go by subscribers because you can always unsubscribe for something that's free for 30 days. But you can't unview a view. And the fun thing about that is when I started to focus on that, everything started to open up. Yep. And then, so I'm telling everybody, it's about the views. If the NFL goes by views for Super Bowl, that's what it's all about. Because all the eyeballs around the world are on those commercials or on that summer movie that they're talking about, a trailer in January that's not coming out until the end of the year because all eyeballs are there. That's when I figured it out, that it's only been 3 years. And so, the next 2 years, I told everybody, started saying it last Tuesday, and it just came out of my mouth. I didn't know I was going to say it. September 26, 2023, I'm retiring because I'll have $50 million at that point because what I know what's coming in from our property. And having the fresh water, we have the 1912 Williamson water rights. We're in a drought. We have always been around the world. I don't have to worry about that because we have it. And we have 10 acres of food, growing our own food. The soil has been very fertile. There's never had a fire on it. There's never been any contamination on it. What does those things tell you? How many people tell you that? And then we have our own energy source. What do you think is going on, right? Just think about that. And you traveled, you've seen a lot of places that don't have these things, right?
And I think what I love, even more than everything you said, like everything you just said is like, when you listen to what Brian just said, it's like, this is happening, this is happening, this is what it has. Like, it was already like, it's done. And that's like the most important of like, you want to talk about your life like it's already done. Like you want to talk about like you have the big house, you have the nice apartment, you have the nice furniture, you have whatever, like it's already yours. Like I remember when my Facebook got hacked and then I started on the platform Medium. I wrote all my things and got it on there. And I literally would look every day at my views. And then one day it's like it's going. And then it gets to 1,500 views in a day. Like literally it's going. Like I'm watching this as the days go up and I'm like, oh my God. And I keep checking. And like,
did you take pictures of it?
I did. I'm pretty sure.
Good, because it was moving so quickly. You had to.
Yes. So it was like one of those things where I was just like, oh my God. And I remember like when I was doing that, I was like, what if I just acted from this place of knowing that every day 1,200 people were reading my things? Like, what if I acted from a place? What would I be doing? I would be calm. I would be relaxed. I'd be trusting myself. I'd be writing other things. Like when you act in that place, if it's already done, it's already knowing. it just becomes natural and encoded into you, so you can go focus on the next thing.
I don't know if you can see this. See that number? See that last number? That was 2 days ago. 9 million, what is it, 980 or whatever it is?
Yep.
I've been keeping track of all of our shows since April 16th of 2019, when we got our first million views.
Amazing.
So between, like I said, between now and the end of the year, we'll have between a minimum of 12 or max 15. Our Tuesday night shows will be 2 million. Slightly, if everything's going the way it is right now, slightly, maybe 2.1 by the end of the year. By April 2nd of next year, we will have 20 to 25 million views. Everything happened an extra year later than when I said, which is very interesting. But again, I'm on record for saying everything that I do, whether I'm giving an interview or doing an interview, because it affects everybody. And as I'm looking at you, as I'm listening to you, following your career, what you were doing when I couldn't travel, I was vicariously traveling through you. I'm going to have you speak on our ranch next year. All right.
Yes, I'd love to.
And the reason for that is because you've been consistent. You're a survivor. You know how to help those people, because we're supposed to be helping a lot of people. And I always say this, we give voice to the voiceless. I'm not an author yet. I will be really soon, because I'm starting to write the things now. But you've already been there, but you already had it in you. But it was basically you were traveling. And I looked at you like this. In my mind, you're 37 years old, because you got that wisdom, even though you're 10 years younger. It's amazing the stuff that you've done. I think you might be the only person that I know, and I know a lot of people around the world who have done what you're doing, and you're still, in my mind, you're just hitting the tip of the iceberg still.
Yeah, I haven't even really started. Like until my PhD, I finished in 2 years, and like what I'm doing with that, that's gonna, I mean, yeah, I always feel like my life is always really starting. Like I have 8 products, and we just have a 9th product we're adding. Like I'm always creating, even like the podcast, we have so many new things that we're coming out with in 2022. And yeah, I think what you shared, and what I loved, right? If I would have went like, when I'm 50 years old, this is what I want to do. Like I would have missed a lot of things. Like I think what I feel what's worked for me, and what I suggest for everyone is like, look at your life and just go, if I could do one thing today, one thing different, what would it be? Whether it's joining a Facebook group. Like I remember I was joining all these travel Facebook groups just to see what countries to travel, cities. Like I would literally be in them. I don't really look at those ones so much anymore, but I was like, literally, how could you travel for cheap, for amazing? What was like, and all these girls would like do it. And you had girls travel. So like girls tell you which places are not safe, which ones are safe. Yeah. Then now my groups have transitioned into more like journal groups or writers groups are a lot of mine. But like I had like a lot of coaching for a while. Like, I don't know, like, even as I've evolved, I could see how like the groups and my interests have evolved, but like, I just literally started one step at a time, and then more things came into my reality. Like, you know, I knew nothing about creating a product, like having my own product, like having like Oracle.
But I disagree with you. I always felt you knew how to create your stuff, because I saw you creating stuff. I don't think you realized what you were doing though. You were doing it. I watched you do it.
Maybe you're right. You could be. Yeah.
There's no maybe. Right. I was right. I was watching you. You just didn't know.
Yeah. Like I knew how to create like a digital marketing.
Right. That's where you were at that point.
Yeah.
But I saw you creating everything, and I saw nothing in your way.
Yeah. Like I knew how to go. I figured all the things out. Like I knew how to do it. I knew how to, like, I figured it out, but I also invested like money that I didn't have at the time, or it looked like I didn't have. Yeah. But I made money. Like I literally was making money out of thin air, whether it was like credit or like what, like, I mean, I was making, or like, then I would sell something and money would come, and it would be people I'd never heard of, like, and then their lives would change, and then they're changing more people. Like it was like this thing of like money just was like flowering everywhere. And
and this is what I tell people: don't chase your fortune, let your fortune chase you. So no matter where you were, your fortune was always going to chase you, which is great.
Yeah. I agree. And I think like, even, I don't know, like I always did big moves before I had the money. And I feel like even now I'm at a point in my life where I'm getting to the point of like, probably this year was the first year, that was one of my goals this year, is like really start to have savings. So before it's like, I made everything, I would have it, but then it was like, I would spending it, but like, I didn't have like a big cushion of savings.
But you were also young then too. So so I was okay with that, because you were young.
Yeah. And so I agree. Like I did, but it was like, but all that money, the other thing I want to put, the money I was making and not saving, that money wasn't being blown on like a nice car or like Chanel clothes or anything. Like even now, if you look at my brand, like I'm just starting to get more in that place. Like really the money always went back into education. Like I can wholeheartedly say that besides like the bills for my business, my money always went into further education, where now it's like I have this savings of money that I never had before that's just there for whatever I decide that I want and need. But always in the first 3 years of my business, everything went back into the business or into education.
Talk about this. We got about 5 minutes. I was always concerned that you coming to Los Angeles, going to California from Arizona. And the reason for that is I always tell people, don't come to Los Angeles unless you've got 5 months of money put away and you got your job coming here. Now, you were coming from a different aspect of stuff, which was interesting. What was it like when you first got here, the first 3 to 5 months maybe, once you started to settle in? Was it difficult for you? Was it challenging?
Not really. Like, see, I always knew I was going to live in LA and I already had the money mindset of it was always going to work out. Like I was already in the five, but I remember like before I knew I wanted a super nice apartment. Like there was no way I was living with roommates and there was no way I was not living in a luxury apartment. Like that was for sure.
Right.
So what I did is for the first month, let me think about this. For the first month, I stayed in an Airbnb. It was this perfect, cute little cottage Airbnb. Like it was so amazing. It was like right by the Hollywood. Like you could see the Hollywood side when you walked out. And it felt like it was kind of like Michigan where I was from. It had like nature, but it was like also LA. Like it was just cute. Well, then I found the Avalon West Hollywood, which was like, I loved it. It has like a rooftop. It has an amazing pool, 2-story gym, 2 working centers. Like I loved it. And so I got my studio apartment, or it was a 1-bedroom apartment, for $3,200 a month. Right. And I was so excited that I got this thing. And then during COVID, I upgraded to a 2-bedroom for $4,200 a month. And I was like, I just kept going. And now like I'm moving where it's going like $10,000 a month. Like it's like you go. And so I was always fine of like where I was. I don't know. I was always fine, but it was still that place of like I was making money, but it was still like going out. Like I wasn't having that big savings of cushion, like that big cushion of savings. But like, I mean, it was a small, but it wasn't like a lot. But I honestly can say because I chose to live in a luxury apartment, with that, it got me in the vibe of thinking bigger. And like, even during COVID, like I still had a 2-story gym. I still had a rooftop. I still had a pool. I had a community of people. Like I wasn't really impacted. So
okay. So that means you're number 41 of people that I know last year that had a great year, including myself then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Only 41 people I know around the world. That's not enough people. So what you and what we're doing, this is why we have to help people, because there's people who will never come back, which leads into the next question of mental health. Talk about it.
Yeah. So I have a lot of blogs on mental health, and arguably if you look at my brain, I've done a lot of neurofeedback therapy, or you look at things, I would be from a Western medicine standpoint, diagnosed with mental health, like a lot of things, like what I would think it's like depression, anxiety, PTSD. I don't know. There's like a whole thing. There was like whatever based on my brain. I have a multiple 6-figure business. I do not feel like I have any of those things. And I help people all day, every day change their lives. So I have a belief that yes, are there voices inside my head? Yes. Are there days I feel anxious? Are there days that I am emotional, that I have mood swings, whatever you want? I mean, a range of it. I just think that's living a full human experience. Now, what the problem is if you have these things or voices or whatever, and you're not in environments that allow you or empower you to understand how to navigate and use this to feel you, then yes, it would be a big detriment to your life. And I think that's why I believe in education so much, is because even in my PhD, right, I'm getting it at Pepperdine. It's a top 50 globally PhD program. Everyone knows there I have ADD. Like I'm sitting there in class, I'm typing, I'm doing 50 million things. Like everyone knows, like every student in there knows. And but then like at the same time, when they stop and ask a question, I stop everything I'm doing and I can answer it almost better than any student there. It's almost like if I'm not so hyper.
That's what I do, but I don't have ADD or anything like that. All my friends do, which is interesting. And then so Colleen and I go like this, what's wrong with me? How come I don't have that? I start thinking about that because I don't drink coffee. I just get up and start doing stuff, and I'm on different time zones. But what does affect me is other people's energies. So I had to learn to say no. And I only kind of started learning like only as little as 3 years ago, maybe 3.5, or else I would say yes every week. So now that's why I'm going to retire in 2 years, September 26th, 2023, because I know what the dollar is, and I know the companies that we have already. We already have the companies. I know how much they're writing to me. I know the individuals that are writing me $1 million, $4 million checks. I already know who they are. What I don't know is the ones that I haven't met yet that are going to be doing that. And I know you can relate to that, right?
Oh yeah, but you will. And I love that you brought up that no. That's a chapter in my 3rd book, An Uncompromised Life, is learn to own your no so you can live a heck yes life. It's really important that you brought that up and you shared that. And I think the other thing that I wanted to say of what you said, yeah, like you have this knowing, like, you know, like, and well, sorry, I want to go back to the ADHD thing. I haven't been diagnosed. Let's say like if I haven't went to a doctor, but for the neurofeedback, when they measure your brain, this is like what your brain can tell you. But there's people who've been diagnosed with these things, and arguably I haven't, but it's like, it could be considered that. And so I just want everyone, it's always your lens. It's always your perspective. Like everything is going to be what you choose to claim and what you want to do with it. So I think, yeah, it's just important. The mental health, we all have mental health issues. We all have trauma. We all have an opportunity to be more well. There's no one in the world who hasn't suffered on some spectrum of any diagnosis. That's just psychologically not even plausible.
But
So
what they don't realize is a lot of it have come from past lives, providing that they believe in past lives, because some people don't. And then they wonder why they're stuck in this one, because they don't get it. It's very interesting.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that's really interesting, the one thing that you said is that when you have this mental health, and I think also like what you listen to, right, it becomes your reality. So if you're always listening, mental health, whatever you listen to, right, this is psychology, and I'm getting my PhD in this, like literally whatever you hear, you are absorbing, whether you like it or not. So if you are watching the news consistently, you are absorbing the news. If you're watching crime shows and spy shows, you are absorbing that fear. Like that is absorbing you. So it's so important to think like, oh, I'm just watching a show, but you're not.
Yeah.
It's all part, like even like I was at the movies recently, and I watched 3 movies back to back. Every single movie there was an alien.
You were doing what I do?
Yep. So every single movie there was an alien, and every single alien, the design work of how the design was the same and the color was the same. And I go, interesting, because it's literally getting our brains ready for us to see an alien with this type of feature with red. And I was like, this is no, like, and then it came on a commercial the other day, and I'm like, and these design is happening cross multiple platforms, cross multiple images and movies. And it's because whatever you want to say it, even if you want to say it's spiritual, just the cloud, it's because the designers are still tapping into a cloud, which is the future, which is this thing that we all have access to from our soul, to get our minds prepared and ready.
Oh. What would be your last word of inspiration to people? What would you say? What does Colleen Gallagher have in that mind, that vast brain of hers that's going 100 miles a minute? And I don't look at you as having ADHD or any of that stuff. I just look at you as being half human, because the stuff that you're creating, the stuff that you're doing doesn't make sense, even though you probably do have it. It just doesn't make sense. I think you agree with that, right?
Yeah, totally. I honestly think the last thing, I really believe in my message of like, choose to fall in love with life. Like when you choose to fall in love with life, when you choose to say yes to you, when you choose just to know, like, I am worthy and deserving to feel love, to experience love, to have a fairy tale of a life, everything will shift. Everything realigns.
And as I always say, if you see someone without a smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it. I'm Brian Sebastian. This is Movie Reviews and More, and we will see you next week.